I once wrote about the KTM RC390 that it was the closest thing we have today to two-strokes of the 80s and 90s, and some readers reacted like I'd defiled the memory of their first love, but I think it's true, and I think the same can be said of the 390 Duke, the original naked version of the RC390, which we've just pitted against Yamaha's new MT-03. Of course, it's not exactly like a stroker, it's a 4-stroke single, but it makes 43.5 horsepower and it weighs 139 kilograms dry, putting it near enough in RD350LC territory. That was 47 horsepower and 143 kilograms according to RD350LC.net. Basically, there's nothing else on the market as small as the 390 Duke which goes as fast, with the possible exception of Yamaha's MT-03. Well, not even that actually. The Duke makes the Yamaha feel like a middleweight with the bars further away. By any standard other than the Duke's, the MT-03 is tiny and slices through traffic like a razor through cream. But then you get back on the KTM and it's like the razor's been heated up. It's almost true to say it can get through any gap a bicycle can, except for those skinny couriers on narrow-barred fixies. The Duke will turn sharply enough to cut a 90-degree angle across unmoving traffic queues and fire itself through closing gaps with a twitch of throttle, and it's controllable enough to do it all without taking a foot off a peg. Both machines are precision tools in the city, but there's a lot more to them than that. The MT-03 makes 42 horsepower, slightly down on the Duke's 43.5, but it doesn't feel lacking. The 321cc parallel twin engine has a reasonable spread of torque. It's a machine you can thrash to the red line in almost every gear without worrying too much about your licence, but you don't have to feel like you're making progress. It's lively from about 5,000 RPM in third, so you can drive briskly out of corners without being constantly on the limit, and because it's so small, it's easy to sling about. But surprise surprise, the Duke is more so. It's got something the MT-03 doesn't: punch. Enough to rock it back and forth on its budget suspension components with a small wrist movement and see it charging towards the horizon at an unlikely rate. Both bikes are under the A2 47 horsepower limit, but still manage to be exciting by being light. In fact, the MT-03 is very close to the A2 power to weight ratio limit, and the Duke is over it, so KTM also has to offer a very slightly restricted one by about 1.5 horsepower. It's hard to imagine that a manufacturer would produce a machine that misses out on a license category by so little, but that's KTM for you. It explains why the Duke easily leaves the MT-03 behind in a roll-on acceleration test from 30 miles per hour in second gear. There's a lot of stuff the MT-03 does better. It's a better all-round motorcycle on a budget. Where the KTM suspension is basic but firmish, the Yamaha's is basic but softish, making it more comfortable for longer rides. It's got a grab rail and more space for a pillion. Neither machine has stunning brakes, although both will stop quickly with enough pressure on the lever. The Yamaha's single front disc offers slightly better feel, even though the KTM's caliper is radial mounted and has 4 pistons instead of 2. The MT-03's engine feels smoother and more fluid than the KTM's, although the Duke's is the better sounding of the two as well as the more potent. The MT-03 will have a longer range with its 14-litre tank compared to the Duke's 11-litre one. Calculated from fuel receipts, we got 57.6 miles per gallon from the Duke on the road test and 61.2 miles per gallon from the MT-03. And the Yamaha has easily enough space under the pillion seat for a disc lock, while getting the KTM seat to close over my ABUS disc lock required guile and cunning. There isn't as much space in there. But the KTM has something else, something better than practical. It's special, like a 125 with a proper engine fitted. I say like, but that is in fact more or less what it is, since it shares its steel trellis frame with the Duke 125. The fact KTM has been silly enough to make it a couple of horsepower too powerful for A2 is telling. The 390 Duke isn't really a bike made to match a license category. It's a bike made just because. It's the one you want in your garage, not because of any license restriction, but because you want it in your garage. That's why, as impressive, useful and fun as the MT-03 is, it can't win this test.